Hello, Patreon. Thank you for being Patreons. So far, huh?
Why are you eating a chocolate?
Because it's Patreon. I'm not worried about that.
Oh, I thought it was like some sort of like
it's just because I wanted chocolate.
special thing. You're trying to do some
No, these people
what do
are
they call
family.
that? Where they give an example?
Object lesson?
Object lesson.
No, I ain't that fancy.
I need to get a mint.
Go ahead. Oh, God. Sorry, guys. I guess maybe I shouldn't have ate this chocolate before I talked into the mic. But, guys, this book, I was even rereading some of the highlights from the week 1 schedule, and I was like, woo! Dr. Shaniqua! She be knowing what she be talking about. I think this will be very interesting because we also have several white women in particular that signed up for this, that want to just learn, that care about biblical justice, that want to learn from my black women or minority women of color. So welcome to the conversation. I thought it would be interesting to have this commentary with my sister. She's getting a mint. She'll be back. I'm still trying to figure out if I want to do it on Zoom. I know the conversation with Dr. Shaniqua herself would be on a Zoom type thing. But I'm just trying to figure out, there's not a whole lot of us right now. What would be like the best day and time to do a Zoom call together? But we'll figure that out. I appreciate your patience as I figure all of that out. But essentially, with the first week's reading, we were reading, is it the preface or the preface? I think it's a preface.
No, I think it's a preface.
Really? Let us know in the comments. We were supposed to read the foreword.
How are they going to let us know in the comments?
On Patreon. You can leave comments on Patreon.
I know, but how are they going to let us know in the comments?
Well, I can go back.
It? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
They could say PREEFACE for preface.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like you could say it. Yeah.
I was like, Erin,
spell it the way it sounds, baby. Spell it the way it sounds. Preface, preface, introduction, and that was it. So I have several things highlighting. I think you're really going to enjoy it, Erica.
I'm excited.
She hasn't yet gotten to it, but we're just going to commentary on what the reading was. So the reason why I love this book, as a black woman, this is a womanist vision for racial reconciliation. She talks a lot about why it's so important for black women in particular to be at the forefront of the conversation of racial reconciliation, because our bodies are the expert textbooks on what white supremacy is. Women of color, let me say that. But black women, we have our own challenges.
Black women are amazing.
I know. I just be thinking about my indigenous women too.
Oh yeah,
and their land and all that. But we about it. It's not that we're not about it.
But when black women win, that's the thing. When we win,
everybody wins. Everybody wins all the time.
We don't segregate like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, it's just us. It's like, no, we win and we bringing you along too.
Oh Jesus. Okay. Every time I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, this is on the XIII. This is in the foreword by Lisa Sharon Harper, who wrote a foreword for this book. She literally says here, you can even just look at mine. White men who yearn to be reconciled with the people of color in the church across town were trained not to see the laws and structures that systematized the rape and exploitation of brown people's great-grandmothers' bodies for white male profit. The fact that this is what I love about Dr. Shaniqua, even though these weren't Dr. Shaniqua's words yet.
Someone she know.
So thank you for that. But the what they are naming is so liberating for me. There's so much truth to that. I was like, yes.
Well, that goes back to generational trauma.
Yeah.
It's like, those are the things. Like we can't be reconciled until we acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Your great-grandpa raped my grandma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we gonna talk about that? Or we want to sing Kumbaya in church?
Exactly. But that's what I love about what that says, that they are naming the acknowledgement necessary of what actually happened, because we can't just have this lovey-dovey conversation on racial reconciliation. We're not talking about white supremacy. We just can't do it. Like, just name the thing, And even talking about trauma later on in the XV11, in the preface or the preface.
Those are actually numbers, but
yeah,
who remembers Roman numerals?
Vaguely. Integration never happened without resistance and without trauma. I have heard multiple stories about their traumatic experiences. And, she's laying all of that out in story form here. But the reason why I highlighted that is because what I love about John Lewis, right, coming up in the civil rights movement, he constantly tested the policies and laws that were put in place. So now you're saying we're integrated. Now I'm going to put my black body in an all white space and see what happens. But here's the thing. You can't actually have integration without resistance of it, right? Because when white supremacy gets pushed on, it pushes back.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
Because it's uncomfortable.
Exactly.
It's a loss of territory, a loss of power.
And for us to also realize that when racial reconciliation is trying to be had, there will be trauma involved. There will be trauma involved. And if we can, as women of color, just lean into the fact that we're going to need some experts on healing of trauma and dealing with that, it makes the ride a lot easier. I don't even know if that's the right word to say.
Right. Yeah. It's more supportive and it's safer.
Yes.
It's not, as like you said, it's not trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma.
Yeah.
Because the very act of going back to acknowledge trauma is traumatizing.
Yes, that is true.
It's a upending of that. So if you have someone that's there to support you in whatever way that is, in the varying ways I'm sure the book will be continue to talk about, then that is helpful and it's less trauma.
Yeah.
It's less you re-experiencing the trauma and more acknowledging it to then heal and move forward.
Yeah.
Without re-traumatizing yourself.
Exactly. Because I think for me, I've been taught so much to just brush it under the rug and keep pushing, because that's the way that's how you're going to survive. But there's so much healing that takes place when you pull it up from under the rug and look at it and square in the face. But that's traumatic to do.
It's muddy and messy.
It's traumatic to acknowledge the trauma. It's traumatic to acknowledge the trauma.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To acknowledge, absolutely.
So when you read the introduction, I know you haven't gotten there yet, but one interesting thing that she breaks down really well is the movement of Promise Keepers. You remember Promise Keepers from Moody Bible Institute, 90.1, WNBI? Yes. Promise Keepers had a lofty goal of eradicating racism in the church by the year 2000. So she breaks down what they tried to do, why they tried to do it, why it didn't work, which is really interesting.
2021.
Yeah.
And
patriarchy that was involved in the conversation too.
I wonder, my thought process, I wonder if she addresses this, would be who was running the program. Was it white men?
Exactly. So here she says this: the evangelical roots of the movement are beneficial in that the field has been first and foremost concerned with practical application. However, because of the emphasis upon male headship and female submission among evangelicals, men have dominated the movement and the literature in the conversation of racial reconciliation.
That's so backwards. Like, what do you have to say, white male, about racial reconciliation? You are the owner of the black body.
Oh, my God.
How are you going to reconcile us to each other?
Yes.
You own the body.
Exactly. And then she says, with few exceptions, women's voices and perspectives are largely absent. The result of this exclusively male gaze is a body of literature that examines race as a singular construct, ignoring the intersections between race, gender, and sexuality. Jesus, thank you for saying the thing. And then I was so blessed by that. I just wrote in the margins here, no other people. Isn't it interesting that we call that the margins? Isn't that I just think that's interesting. No other people group know and understand white supremacy more than the marginalized.
Absolutely
No
not.
other people group.
And here's the thing. Someone was just commenting, about how they've been looking for a racially diverse church that focuses on justice, that has all these different things. So they're excited to visit Kaleo, which is where Erin is the pastor of. You all know that.
Yeah.
And here's one thing that I have come to recognize, which kind of goes with that. A lot of times people think that they are doing the work because their congregants are diverse.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's where they stop. They're like, well,
Erin's
promise
on
keepers,
staff.
right? Promise keepers.
Yeah.
No, not even that level. I'm not even talking about that level, but promise keepers, like everyone that's involved with who's running it.
Yeah.
Who's the leadership? Who's got the power?
Yeah.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
Because that will eventually trickle down. But people try to work backwards. They try to diversify and front face.
So here's the other thing about that. Not only who's in power, who's running it, but when they are in power, do they actually have power, or is it controlled by?
Right. That's what I mean. Is it equal? Is it actually equal? Right.
Shared leadership.
Then the next level would be like, well, Erin works for.
Well, when I said Erin's on staff, I was talking about the other churches I was on staff at, not this.
That's
not
what I
Kaleo.
mean.
Yeah.
Like you're on staff, you're somebody's assistant, you're taking cues from someone else. You're not a part of the vision, but you're a part of the execution.
Yeah.
We have Black people and brown people on our staff.
Yeah.
No, that's also a form of front facing because the person that has the ultimate power is not a person of color and is a male.
Yeah.
So what I look for and what I'm excited about, even about what you guys, because I know Kaleo read this, you and Chris and Chase.
Yeah.
What I was excited about is because while I don't know that the congregation is diverse right now, I know that's something that you guys are working on.
Yeah.
But the leadership and the foundation of how you guys are looking to build this young church is equitable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what I can put my thing in. It's not because they have 50 Black people and 50 white people and like 25 Latinos and indigenous. Like that's not what I'm looking for because I've been to churches like that, and the leadership is the top people are still a white man that's making the choices, or a white woman that's his wife, and it's like So
and even that has a lot of patriarchy.
It does. It's a huge amount of patriarchy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I appreciate her bringing that up even about Promise Keepers because that is what a lot of I think people are struggling with even now is that you have these big mega churches that are diverse in their congregations, but they're not diverse in their staffing, or they're not diverse in their power structures.
Yeah. Yep.
So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because that's super important.
So this little section, I'm going to read a little bit more because I love the trailer to the movie. Let's just call it that. So page 5, bottom of page 5. I'll let you get to it because it's kind of fun being able to read together on the camera and all that kind of stuff. PK's attempt to disciple 1 million Promise Keepers' attempt to disciple 1 million evangelical Christian men into the gospel of racial reconciliation was hardly a success. It met with considerable skepticism from Black and Latinx evangelicals. For example, after McCartney delivered a breakfast address at the 1995 gathering of the National Black Evangelical Association, one attendee demanded, "What is Promise Keepers going to say about the anti-affirmative action atmosphere in this country?" Turn the page. What are the men in the stadiums this summer going to hear about that? Will Promise Keepers stand up and be counted on this issue? In his Christianity Today article, Tapia asked, and this is powerful, does the white Promise Keeper wanting to hug me, and Tapia is black or a person of color, does the white Promise Keeper wanting to hug me with reconciling fervor take into account that he may support immigration policies that make Latinos, whether U.S.-born, legal immigrant, or undocumented, feel scrutinized every time they go to the doctor or take a child to school? That many Latinos could end up on the streets once welfare reform goes into full effect at the city and neighborhood level. That crackdowns on drugs are disproportionately applied to communities of color.
Let's talk about it because now weed is legal. Well, what happened to all the people that are in jail for selling weed?
Exactly.
Stop.
Exactly. That English language only initiatives create a climate where the desire to inculcate in my daughter my language and culture is seen as un-American. The stripping of your culture. That is what white supremacy does all the time. Rid you of who you are. The next step for racial reconciliation, I highlighted this part. The next step for racial reconciliation needs to include rethinking the social and political issues that divide and exacerbate our communities.
Absolutely. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. It's just front facing. It's just trying to look good and say something like a hug to a black or brown body means nothing.
Yeah.
It's a photo op. It means absolutely nothing.
And
yeah, I don't even know the word. It's just like so deprived. It's deprived of any sort of real, authentic, genuine anything because it's just, It's almost worse than not doing anything because you're pretending like you're doing something.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like almost detrimental because you're tricking yourself into thinking you're actually an advocate when you're nothing but. So then no real work is actually being done because you're so caught up in this fake work. And we only on the introduction.
I know. So here, this is interesting. To be honest, me unlearning the white evangelical culture that I grew up in and know and have known for so long, when I saw the word womanist vision, I was like, what is that? Like, what does it mean to be a womanist? She defines it here and really breaks it down throughout the book, and I'm really excited for us to dive into it.
What page?
We're on page 11. Right at the bottom there. Taking its name from the word coined by Alice Walker, womanist theology can be defined as the systematic faith-based exploration of the many facets of African American women's religiosity. Womanist theology is based on the complex realities of Black women's lives. The womanist scholars recognize the name and the imagination and the initiative that African American women have utilized in developing sophisticated religious responses to their lives. Essentially, it is the theology that Black women have on what it means to be Black in America. Essentially, that is womanist theology. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I love the term developing sophisticated religious responses to their lives. How many sophisticated religious responses do we have to everyday life? Do you know what I mean? Like where it's not just Bible breath stuff, but it's actually the way that we have to live through a faith that is sophisticated and eloquent and meaningful and authentic and in depth, and the way that we function in the world that wasn't made for us.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I would love to know in the comments on Patreon, what are some of the points that you guys really liked? And I look forward to figuring out a way to actually hear from you at some point.
Well, can't you do it live on Patreon?
I could do it live on Patreon, like on Zoom or YouTube, but then it's like, there's like 10 of us right now. When I can do it, would people actually be able to be on it? I'm not sure.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean?
I see.
Because I could really do it like Friday mornings, but I don't know. I feel like people work and stuff, but I'll check with you guys. I'll put a poll in and whatnot.
People do it at work though.
Yeah. So women of color, this is page 13 at the bottom. Women of color are often the marginalized among the marginalized. Our very survival depends upon knowing how the isms, or as I prefer to think of them, the powers and principalities work. We studied so we can survive. That's why we should be teaching this stuff, because we've lived it. These aren't textbooks we've gone to school for to then pass tests so that we can go home and live our privileged lives. These are things that we have to navigate day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out, which is just interesting, which is why I applaud Black women especially who have chosen to be educators in this space and have chosen to let their lived experience help teach other people, but you will be paying them. That's like, Rachel Cargill or like Austin Channing Brown. It's like pay them to educate you, because their life, it's not only like the time they spent learning, it's like it's their life is what you're learning from.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I think people maybe are starting to get this, but it's like, okay, so there's a history of misogyny in this country where men are more powerful than women. Great. So it's like, but then it's also the racial tension, and where do Black women sit? At the crux of all of that.
Yeah.
We are a double minority. We are not only women, we are also Black.
Yeah.
And so the things that we have to do as women in spaces to be taken seriously, and then on top of that, as Black people in spaces to be taken seriously, there is a skill set that you have to build as a Black woman in the world.
That's true. She goes on to say at the top of page 14, we are frequently hurting from the injuries we sustain, speaking of Black women, when we dare to step out of place. And we are always aware that others, men of color, as well as white women and men, do not have to bend and sidestep in the same ways or to the same degree.
degrees.
That is the absolute truth.
Should have worn my little pin. I'll have to do it for our conversations.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. We thus have unique vantage points from which to view how the systems work. This is I highlighted this next sentence. Those who are serious about liberation, and reconciliation would do well to sit at our feet and learn from us. And I say that not because I want people to learn from me in particular, because I'm not really about that. Although, like, I love learning in community and being able to discuss things like this with other Black women, women of color, and also, yes, because I'm not diminishing my gift or anything like that. But I love seeing this because I'm like, yes. Everybody needs to have a Black woman mentor. Everybody in the world. Everybody in the world. Who is your Black woman mentor? There's a Black woman out here in Phoenix called, her name is Linda. We need to be meeting her. She's involved in neighborhood ministries.
Okay.
I was in a Zoom conversation where she was talking. I'm like, she knows a lot.
Like, okay, Linda, we need to be.
She knows a lot and has been around the civil rights movement and was around in Phoenix before when it was being desegregated, and has friends that have experienced all of that and can see, what is it called when white people move into town? What is that word?
Oh, I know what you mean.
With a G? Gentrification?
Yes.
Gentrification. There's all these words.
I was going to say genocide.
Ooh,
that too.
That too.
That too.
The genocide that comes after the gentrification. Hello. But yeah, it's a whole thing.
That's a whole other thing.
But
gentrification.
I'm like, wow. And I've been living in Arizona for 5 years, but I've never really tapped into the history of the city the way that I am right now,
You've been
which
for
is kind
5 years?
Almost April 2021 is 5 years. April 2016, I moved here.
I guess it'll be 3 years for Stephen and I.
Yeah.
We moved here in 2018, February.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited to move to downtown Phoenix and be in the city and learn about the city at the same time and serve the city at the same time. And all of those things are just beautiful. I love how she says this, middle of page 14. African American women have long been lauded. Is that the right? Mm-hmm. Lauded as the caregivers of, well, the whole damn world. The caregivers of the whole damn world.
That's what I'm telling you. I can't wait to get to the part. I know it because Erin talked about it, but ramification, how that happens so much.
Erica, you will love the way she breaks it down.
I know. I'm going to enjoy it because I feel like I'm at a crossroads in my own journey as an educator and now having my own child, where I'm feeling that weight of like, your children are not my responsibility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I cannot be teaching everybody.
Yeah.
Like, that's not my responsibility.
Ooh.
Okay? That's not me. I'm not the one.
Yeah.
And I think that Black female educators feel that in a unique way than even other teachers do. Because that is, again, flowing through our veins, where we were snatched from our own children, not being able to breast our own children so we could breastfeed the white woman's children. Do you know what I mean? So
Erica.
These are the little things.
Yeah.
These are the little things that we're learning.
I love this. Listen to this. Further on, page 14 in the middle somewhere. African American women are concerned not just for our own healing and liberation. We want it for everyone. We know that ain't none of us free unless all of us are. How many times have we talked about that? Listen, when Black women get free, everybody get free.
Everybody get free.
Everybody get free when Black women get free.
Everybody get free. And that's why, too, even in this whole movement, like, I have just really not understood the way the church is consistently focused on affirming or not affirming people or deciding who's accepted or who's not accepted. First of all, ain't no never mind. Like, who are we? Do we even have the power to, like, not affirm someone? Like, is that even within our realm of being?
Okay, the fact that you think that you have the ability to say or to determine
whether or not someone's life
or not affirmed,
someone's life matters or not is crazy. And I think that I'm realizing that that's a unique perspective sometimes as a Black female. And also, just to her point, it's like, we realize too, it's like, if we're not all free, if the Bible's not for everyone, it's for nobody. Yeah. If it's not for everybody, then it's not for anybody.
That's the truth.
And I don't want it.
That's the truth.
And I don't want it.
That's the truth.
So
yeah.
That's why, yes, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, That's gay, straight, black, white, male, female, child, old. That it has to be for everybody. Otherwise, it's for nobody.
Yeah. I love that she says this too, goes on after that sentence. And because we, speaking of black women, are experts at wearing the mask of the strong black woman to hide how we really feel, we know that external appearance is not a marker of internal health. Thus, womanists are concerned not just with the interpersonal, but also with the intrapersonal. In other words, with the wounds that racism inflicts upon the self-image of people of color and the way in which it diminishes our capacity to see the image of God, Shayla de Beauchamp, stamped upon us.
That's the whole work.
That's
the whole
so
work
powerful.
Of social emotional learning, mindfulness, counseling. All of that is internal and spiritual work. And it's not covering something with Jesus saves.
Yeah.
No, sweetie, there are literal trauma things that you either need support and help with someone. You need to learn how to acknowledge yourself and then regulate yourself. Like that.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's just so good. It's so good. I'll just read the rest of that going into the last page because I highlighted a few more things. Do you want to read it? Or do you want me to read it?
No, you can read it. I was just...
So at the bottom of page 14, at the same time, though, womanist theology will not allow us to limit reconciliation to the intrapersonal and interpersonal level. Mm-hmm. Feeling better about ourselves and getting along on the individual level do not racial reconciliation make. Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Well, she said it. Yeah.
Okay. Indeed, womanists reject outright the notion that reconciliation can be reduced to interpersonal relationships because we are fully aware that power structures relationships. We refute the notion, that's powerful. We refute the notion that mere intercultural contact will reduce prejudice and increase harmony. That is a whole word, Dr. Shanika Walker-Barnes. That's a whole word because that's what the white evangelical church believes wholeheartedly. If I can interculturally rub and touch,
if we have
then there must be harmony. Oh my gosh, it's the biggest lie. It's the most deceptive thought process. Oh my goodness. Have breakfast, baby play date, doggy play date.
Go out for a drink.
Oh my gosh.
If I go
please,
to your wedding.
Jesus, please save us. Save us. We refute the notion that mere intercultural contact will reduce prejudice and increase harmony. We carry the cultural memories of mothers, grandmothers, and other mothers who service as domestic workers for white men and women provided lots of intercultural proximity. Hello? During slavery and Jim Crow. Jesus.
I raised your babies.
Jesus.
I raised your babies. You was kind. You was smart. You was important.
She's saying nothing but truth. I hope that this is liberating some women of color in this time.
Listen. You was smart. Listen. You was important.
Hello?
Raised your goddamn kids.
Hello.
And there was no reconciliation.
Hello. It's not proximity, folks.
It's not proximity.
It's
not proximity.
Ooh.
I feel like you need to let that sit in the people's spirits for a minute. If there's nothing else, take this to your communities. It is not proximity that leads itself to racial reconciliation.
Because we've been proximate.
Sorry.
We've been proximate.
We've been close. Wow. This might mess up some people. You was raping us. Having our little mixed babies.
We've been proximate. Still making the mixed baby slaves.
Or making them tokens.
Yeah.
We've been proximate. Yeah. It's not about proximity. It's not about that black friend that you have.
Yeah.
Or the 2 black friends that you have. Or the 3 black friends that you have.
Yeah.
It's not about that.
I love the way she breaks that down. She calls it out. Let it sit. Just sit in the moment. Like, thank you for naming for us what has been happening once again. Thank you, Dr. Shaniqua Walker-Barnes, for the work that you put into this. Because even in the introduction, I feel liberated again. Every time I read her words, I'm like, thank you for naming.
Yeah, it's so real. Like, it's so real. I just want to say this one thing that she says. We share kitchen table.
Yeah,
words.
Go ahead. Yep, it's all right.
We share kitchen table talk with aunts and cousins who labor today as new domestics. This is what I'm talking about, what I feel like I'm walking out of. Home care, nursing home, hospice nursing, assistance for the elderly. for elderly white people and nannies for their young. I'm going to insert teachers too. We know firsthand that such proximity does not protect us from the abuses of racism.
Yeah.
It only renders us more susceptible.
Yeah. Wow. I'll tell you what. This was really encouraging that I never knew of this book until Chris Townley, who's a white male, was like, hey, I think we should read this together if we're going to be leading together in this local church context, which I was, I didn't research it. Once I started reading it, I was like, hello?
Y'all on this?
Hello?
But
that's one thing. But then to now also read it with another black woman who's just like, yes and amen on every word.
All you do is stand there.
It's powerful.
Playback women.
It's powerful.
It's super powerful and it's super important and it's super like so there's, you know, the audacity of caucasity is a thing. Right? It's a huge thing. And I was telling Erin, I just feel like this is the year where we step into our audacity, where we just are like, obviously you're going to, like, yes, I deserve this. This is like, we can't, we're masters at skirting truth to make other people feel uncomfortable, namely white people, to make other people feel comfortable, namely white people. We're masters at it. That's, in a nutshell, a lot of what she was saying is that black women should be, you know, don't be, but then do to make you comfortable. Yeah. No, I'm stepping into the audacity being like, yeah, absolutely. Black women are the shiznit, and you should be sitting at our feet. You should be paying us for breathing.
I want to say this last paragraph. In bottom of page 15. Excuse me. In essence, womanist theology takes all that you thought you knew about racism and reconciliation and tells you that you ain't nothing but a babe wandering in the wilderness. So come on over here, Chile.
Child.
I was like, that don't sound right. As it don't come out of my mouth. Chile. So come on over here, child. Sit a spell and let the woman folk teach you something about the ways of the world.
About the ways of the world. I even love the way she writes.
Yes.
She does not back away from African-American vernacular.
Yes.
And because, I will say this, it takes a little off topic, but black children in public spaces that are able to code switch deserve degrees.
She talks about code switching later on too.
Deserve degrees because they have a whole vernacular that they know and understand and can communicate with, and the fact that they're able still to learn in a system that was created for whiteness, that's a degree, sweetie. It's a degree. So anyway, I just appreciate her sticking to the vocabulary and the vernacular of Africa and celebrating that in her writing. I'm here for it.
Yes.
I'm here for it, Dr.
Shanika Walker Barnes. Oh, I can't wait till we can have a combo with her. Yo, that's
Are you gonna get her on?
Yes, I want us to have a Zoom combo.
Did you reach out to her?
I have. She hasn't responded yet, but I'm gonna keep reaching out. You know, I'm sure we'll actually be able to do it. Like, that's the beauty of Patreon and Learn With Me, is that we can actually talk to the authors after we read the book together. That's so cool, right? So yeah.
Ooh, next chapter, y'all. Racism is not about feelings or friendship.
Jesus.
My God.
Okay. So
you got to read an article that I wrote about tokenizing black people as friendships.
Read that. I'll put the link in the remind me to put the link in the Patreon. Also, homework. Granted, we already know our reading homework, but I really want us to be thinking about, I definitely want to ask her about this. Or I really want her to expound on this. Yes. Because I love that we already know we're going to talk to her before we read it. So I really, on Patreon and us too, gather a collection of questions to ask her, because she's something special, yo. She's something real special. And this liberated me unlike any other book I have ever read. And it was the best book I read all of last year. And I read several books last year. This one right here. Dr. Shanika Walker Barnes. I bring the voices of my people. A womanist vision for racial reconciliation. This is week 1. We love you guys. See you next time.
Bye.